Hawkins, psychotherapist in Ridgewood, so very local. I've written 2 books, Beyond Your Confines and Beyond the Blue. The reason I wrote these was, as a psychotherapist, during the pandemic, I haven't been able to help all the people I could help, so I sort of try to make mental health strategies as accessible to everybody as possible. So the first book, Beyond the Blue, was mainly focused around a particular group, male labelled, who don't usually access mental health care, and yet they're the people who have the highest suicide rates and trauma rates. So Beyond the Blue is a play on words, beyond the blue of the male label, and beyond the blue of depression. There's a societal myth that people who have been given the male label don't suffer from depression, and that's not true. So yeah, I kind of argued that the male label acts as a blindfold for people in society, either people who are men and they're not aware of their own emotions or what those emotions are trying to tell them, and that's because of the way they've been conditioned. I talk about depressed men as being like black swans. You don't really see them, even though they do exist. You only really expect to see the white swans. So if you don't expect to see something, then you're not going to see a depressed man in front of you. So I also argue that the male label acts as a blindfold to mental health care professionals as well. They see the surface anger, irritability, but they don't see the underlying other mental health challenges like depression, trauma, anxiety. So Beyond the Blue has kind of simple strategies just for anyone who's never accessed mental health services, just giving them a kind of pause for thought that maybe some of the things you're struggling with may need further help. And there's some basic things to help them on their feet and then find more expert help for more complex things like trauma. So I was actually going to talk about the other one first, but I flipped it in my nervousness. But I hope that was clear. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Beyond Your Confines, so that was out last year, and that was written over the pandemic. But this is out at the moment, Beyond Your Confines. I kind of, when we were all confined to our homes during the pandemic, I started to think about confinement and what it means for our mental health. Since the pandemic, depression and anxiety rates have risen from 1 in 10 adults to 4 in 10 adults. That's even after the pandemic. So something's going on there. So what I say in this book is it's sort of like the perfect storm. We were confined in our own homes. We all had to teach our kids, work from home, or live on top of each other. That's one kind of prison that we were working under and living under. But on top of that, we were already confined in terms of our mental processes, that a lot of our thought patterns or the way we regulate our emotions are like a mental prison. Sometimes we choose to use substances or overeating to manage emotion dysregulation, but there are other ways to kind of free our mind. So those kind of mental traps that we create ourselves, added to the pandemic, really kind of made things worse. On top of the growth in technology, I argue that the more and more we use these social media devices and iPhones, it kind of caters to our need for a quick fix and our intolerance of uncertainty. We want to get quick answers. So that was another sort of prison, mental prison. So the growth in technology, the pandemic, and already our unhelpful thought patterns all combining together, creating a real prison for our minds. But it does say Beyond Your Confines, the key to free your mind. The way to free your mind, I looked at other pandemics, and I thought we could learn a lot from the way we've responded to a lot of pandemics. So things like the 1918 influenza pandemic and the recent 2020 COVID pandemic. Confinement actually worked, temporary confinement. It stopped the spread. So I draw a parallel between that and things like burnout that sometimes we do need a break from all this technology, or the constant working, or the lack of boundaries we have with our family and friends. Sometimes we need that temporary confinement for our mental health, to stop the spread of things like burnout. I am a parent who was a psychotherapist and working from home and living from home during the pandemic. So I've dedicated a special chapter, for my own selfish purposes, to parents who are parenting through and beyond the pandemic, because that's particularly complicated, having to regulate your own emotions and regulate your children's emotions at the same time. I didn't say anything that I thought I was going to put on my notes for the speech, but I don't know whether that's... Thank you very much for listening to me, and I'm really overwhelmed by the quality of all these authors. I think I'm a psychotherapist first. I may be an author soon, but at the moment this is new. Haven't ever even signed a book, so this is an exciting day for me. So if anyone wants to be the first, that would be great. Yeah. Thank you.